Hi everybody, this is Damien from Legend Life. With our Legend Stories, we look to share inspirational stories about people who are living their purpose. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Ricky Munday. Ricky is a chartered accountant by profession, but he's also an adventurer. He's climbed 20 mountains, including summiting Mount Everest in 2018. He's also founder of a social enterprise, Inspire Alpine. So today we're going to find out a little bit more about Ricky's background and his experience, and he's going to share how he discovered his purpose and is very much into inspiring others to follow their purpose and live their dreams. So how are you today, Ricky?
I'm doing really well, thank you. It's a beautiful sunny day here in Glasgow in Scotland. So yeah, it's all going really well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing well, thanks. So, how about let's start at the beginning and then learn a little bit about how you went from your background in a council estate in Glasgow, becoming a chartered accountant, and then some of your adventures.
Yeah, sure. So I mean, I grew up here in Glasgow on a council estate. So my family were kind of economically disadvantaged. We didn't have much money, and we didn't like own a car, for example. So I was getting around like by bike or on my by bus. But I did play a lot of sport, and so that sort of love for sport stayed with me through my whole life, basically. But when I was 12 years old, I got an amazing chance to go to a private school because the UK government had a scheme called the Assisted Places Scheme, and that gave disadvantaged young people the chance to go to a private school, and the government paid the school fees because the families could never afford that. And that just opened up lots of different opportunities for me, and I found some really brilliant role models, and it really broadened my horizons. And so that's where I got my first real opportunity to get out of the council estate and kind of escape from that environment. So that was a real life changer for me.
No, awesome. So from that experience, then you went on to university, completed your degree in accounting. So what were the next steps after that?
So actually, I found university really difficult. I was going from a really structured environment at the private school to just, complete freedom at university. And I didn't feel like I fitted in because I was coming from a council estate background and most of the people around me were middle class.
Yeah.
And I was quite socially anxious at the time. So I just didn't want to go and make new friends. And I ended up actually smoking a lot of cannabis, drinking a lot of alcohol. I got arrested twice over the next few years, and I dropped out of university twice, actually. It took me 7 years to get my 4-year degree.
Yeah.
And I finally got that degree and then moved on to get my first job as a trainee chartered accountant. And then, I was working away as a chartered accountant. I was playing rugby for my local club at the time. So not professional level, but kind of semi-professional. And rugby was going really well, but my professional studies were quite challenging, and I failed my tax exam twice and I lost my job. And that was a real low point for me. I actually became really anxious thinking that if I fail that exam, I know I'm going to be made redundant. No one will hire me again because, I've dropped out of university a few times and I've just failed my exams. So I actually became really anxious and depressed, and I had to take time off work. And I went to see my GP, and I was on a course of antidepressants for several months, and I was referred for counseling. And I did cognitive behavioral therapy, which I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but the basic logic behind it is your thoughts drive your feelings, which drive your behaviors.
Yep.
And that was a really important lesson for me, to start replacing negative thoughts with positive thoughts. And that logic has kind of stayed with me through some of my adventures ever since. But yeah, I did finally get back to work, resat my exams, and came out as a chartered accountant, at the other end of that funnel. And then I started looking for exciting work opportunities at that point.
Okay. And so those exciting work opportunities took you overseas, didn't they, with the Red Cross for a number of years?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, I was working in a corporate bank in Edinburgh, and I just didn't feel fulfilled. Like, I felt like I had so much more potential. And, I was playing rugby, which was great. And we were winning, the league championship and the Scottish Cup, and that was all brilliant. But I just felt like there was much more to life than just, going to the office every day, 9 to 5. So I'd always had an inkling that I wanted to work for the Red Cross. So I started exploring, how could I do that? I had no experience. So I was volunteering on the weekends for a local charity in Edinburgh just to gain some experience.
Yeah.
And I started writing job applications off the back of it. And I must have written 50, 60 job applications. And finally, I secured my first role in Darfur in Sudan with a small German NGO, like a charity, humanitarian organization. And that was actually delayed because of the great insecurity in Darfur at the time. You know, there was a genocide going on in Darfur.
Yep.
There was a lot of carjackings. There was a lot of kidnappings of international staff. So my start was delayed, but eventually I got a chance to go, and I was there for a year and a half working in Sudan. And I decided that actually this was really meaningful. You know, I wasn't directly giving out medicine, so I wasn't on the front line.
Yep.
But the work that I was doing was supporting the most vulnerable people. And that gave me a huge amount of satisfaction. So for the next 6, 7 years, I moved into progressively larger organizations in Bangladesh and Pakistan, followed by 2 years living and working in Haiti, not long after the massive earthquake. So really meaningful work. And that was really where I discovered my purpose, was kind of in my early 30s, finding that new career avenue. And that's where I decided I want to support the most vulnerable people.
Okay. So, and then in the background as well, you have your adventure kind of like career also kind of developing. So how did that get started?
Well, basically, you know, I was playing rugby all the time. So that
Yeah.
meant my time was quite committed to training and playing rugby. But once I moved overseas, and I guess a couple of years before that, as my rugby career was going down, I found myself having more time to spend time in the mountains. And I'd always been a keen hill walker, and I'd done some rock climbing, but I'd never had much time to pursue it. So that really started to grow. And then at the same time, in 2003, when I was made redundant, actually, from my job as a chartered accountant, I knew that I had to focus on my energy onto something really positive, because I knew that I would be unemployed for probably several months while I looked for a new employer. So I decided to enter the Marathon des Sables, which is a 150-mile ultramarathon in the Sahara. And that just gave me a real focus. I did some fundraising for that. I got some sponsorship, and I put my energy into training. And then I did actually start and complete the Marathon des Sables in April 2004. And that was completely changed my life, actually, because up until that point, I'd always been quite, you know, I had low self-esteem, lacked self-confidence. I didn't believe in myself. And actually I was sabotaging myself by drinking and taking drugs and so on.
Yep.
And for the first time ever, I set myself a really challenging goal, and I kind of had a project to deliver it. And, you know, I actually finished that event, the toughest foot race on earth. And I thought, well, it removed so many of these mental barriers for me. It was completely, almost overnight, I began to, you know, set myself bigger and bigger challenges. And most of those challenges were now about the mountains, actually.
Okay. So what would you say to other people who are like combating the same thing as yourself? Like, I think lack of self-belief is probably inherent amongst most people. You know, some manage it better than others. Seems like you've overcome it by having goals, challenges, keep pushing yourself, and then each one where you successfully accomplish it, it kind of like proves to yourself that you can do stuff. So is that the kind of methodology you use, or how's it work?
There's two parts to it. One part is that where you have those positive experiences where you do complete something. You know, I didn't personally believe it would be possible for me to finish the Marathon des Sables. You know, that was my one goal. I wasn't trying to win it. I just wanted to survive it and get through it. But I still felt like I probably wouldn't. But being able to do that gave me just a massive amount of confidence in myself, right? The other part is when I failed at things, or I perceive that I failed, because a lot of it is avoiding opportunities because you fear failure. So that's what I used to do. But I've learned from lots of different mountain expeditions where I've not reached the summit, or I've had to turn back, I've chosen to turn back, that you know, real failure is not until you give up, i.e. you might not achieve your goal the first time, but you can always go back and try again and change some things about it, change your strategy, and just learn each time until you finally achieve that goal. And it's only when you decide, actually, I'm not doing that anymore, I'm giving up completely, that's failure, right?
Yeah.
If you learn from your from not succeeding, then that's not failure. And that's what I certainly learned, especially on Everest in 2017 when I turned back.
Yeah. So now let's talk about the journey towards Everest. So as you mentioned, you failed in 2017, but you successfully summited in 2018. So what was the lead up to there? So what kind of expeditions? And then what about Everest kind of like really appealed to you?
I mean, my first big expedition was 2005. I tried to climb Mont Blanc, which is the highest peak in Western Europe in the European Alps, with my friend. We did it unguided. My friend was quite experienced. I
Yeah,
was relatively lacking in experience. So actually, we bivvied outside one of the huts on the mountain, and then we tried to summit the following day. But my admin wasn't very good. So, my liner gloves got wet, and that meant on summit day, my hands got cold.
yeah,
So I decided to turn back actually about 150 meters from the top. My friend went on to summit. So, that was my first big mountain experience. And I thought, okay, I've learned something here. What will I do? And I started planning bigger and bigger expeditions. So the following year, I planned an expedition to Kantengri, which is a 7,000-meter peak on the border of Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and China in the Tian Shan Mountains. Now, that was just a massive scale up from Mont Blanc. A huge glacier that we had to trek up, a big ice fall that we had to negotiate. And again, we were stuck at base camp for 2 weeks with bad weather. And it was the same friend from the year before. So we didn't get the chance to acclimatize. And ultimately, we tried to reach the summit, but we were just not in condition. So my first two expeditions were basically failures.
yeah,
But I then started to I set myself the goal of climbing the three highest peaks on every continent. That's called the 777 summits.
yeah,
You'll have 7 summits. This is like 1, 2, 3 in each continent. And that really gave me a huge amount of focus. I perceived it as a kind of 25-year project. And I thought, I'm still working, full time. So when I have a break in my contract and I'm finishing a mission somewhere, I'll plan an expedition. So I started thinking about multi-peak expeditions in one place. So I sort of planned the Africa Three Peaks expedition,
yeah,
which was trying to climb the three highest peaks in Africa in one trip. And that was almost a great success. Not quite. There was one peak we didn't reach, but that gave me a model for future trips. And basically over the last 20 years, 15 years, I think I've completed about 25 expeditions now to more than 25 mountains. And that gave me the confidence to say, actually, I have all those skills and experience, and I could try to climb Everest. Yeah. And so in
and
2017, I set off to try and do that.
yeah. So what happened there? Like you mentioned that you weren't able to summit, you had to turn back just as you were, pretty close to being able to summit.
Well, we were climbing on the north side, so you can climb Everest on two sides: the south in Nepal or the north in Tibet, which is China.
Yeah,
And I chose the north route because it's objectively less dangerous than the south. There's no ice fall to climb through.
yeah,
It's a little bit colder and windier in the north, and also it was a little bit cheaper, not much, but I think prices have evened out now. So I set off in 2017, and we had a team of 10 climbers, and we progressed through our acclimatization process. So we climbed up and down the mountain several times, and then we moved up on our summit bid to camp 2 at 7,900 meters, so just below the death zone at 8,000 meters. The weather forecast had changed, so instead of spending one night at this camp now, we would have to spend 2.
yeah,
And I had been unable to eat anything from the camp below. So camp 1 at 7,000 meters, I couldn't eat anything at all. I felt very nauseous. So my energy levels for that section were just super low. And I knew that having spent 2 nights up here now, I would just get weaker and weaker and weaker. And there's no rescue service on that side of the mountain. So
yeah,
you have to be sure that you've got enough strength to actually get up and down safely. And there's obviously like 10 to 12 bodies of climbers in the death zone on the summit ridge on that side of the mountain. You've got to climb past those bodies. So my fingers were getting cold as well. And I'd suffered a cold injury on Denali in Alaska several years before. So there was a few factors where I was just like, things are not feeling right here. I've got to make a decision. So in the morning, I decided I'm going to descend actually. The most important thing is to get home safely from this trip.
yeah,
So I climbed down to advanced base camp, 2 camps below. And then the same day that I climbed down, a massive windstorm hit my teammates up at the camp. And that led to 2 tents being plucked off the mountain. And they made an emergency descent once the winds had died. During that descent, one of my teammates ran out of oxygen and was separated at the back of the group. He suffered severe frostbite. He suffered 9 pulmonary embolisms. and he had to be rescued at midnight and brought down slowly down the mountain. And I'd come back to base camp by now with 2 other climbers, and I was tasked with basically coordinating my teammate Mike's evacuation from base camp and making sure that his insurance company were informed and the rescue company were informed, and making sure the logistics were in place to get him out and get him to hospital in Kathmandu.
Yeah. Okay. And so how did that prepare you for 2018?
It was really valuable experience, right? So I knew the moment that I took the decision to turn back, I felt like I was not going to regret it. And I haven't regretted it for a moment. It was a tough call because I had a lot of sponsors, I had a lot of people following me on the expedition. So I felt like a responsibility to those people because they're living vicariously through me. But as soon as I took that call to turn back, I got so many messages from people from the UK saying, look, that was a great decision, Ricky. So I felt like I'd made a good decision in difficult circumstances. And I knew the route all the way up to 7-9. I knew how my kit was going to perform and how my body would react. And it was only the 1,000 meters above that was unknown for me. And I also knew, several people who are good friends who have summited Everest. So having compared myself against them on various expeditions, I felt like physically I definitely had it in me to get to the top. So when I went back in 2018, I had all this, positive energy surrounding my attempt, and it was a completely different experience. We got good weather. We got an amazing weather forecast. That we live in clear days. That was our weather window, and I felt strong, and I was able to eat, and I was able to sleep at the high camps just for a couple of hours. So that just gave me a huge amount of confidence to keep going above 8,000 into the death zone.
Okay, brilliant. So how did you feel summiting?
It's indescribable, to be honest, because on that side of the mountain, there's these 3 steps. So you may have heard of the Hillary step, which is on the south side on the summit ridge, and that is like a vertical boulder where one person can go up or down at a time. On the north side, you have 3 steps, first, second, and third. The second step is about 40 meters high. So it's very obvious when you get to the second step because there's 2 ladders that have been placed. So you know where you are. But outside of that, I was never 100% sure where I was in the route. So when I realized that the summit was actually just about 50 steps ahead of me, it was a shock because I was not expecting that. I've been discussing with my Sherpa, how long to go do you think? And he would say 1.5 hours, 2 hours. And then suddenly we're there and the summit's just ahead of us. So it was a massive shock. And it was just such a feeling of relief. And I don't think I'll ever feel that again. Just all the stresses and strains of the year before and this year and all the work that I put in for the decade before that, it all just kind of dropped away. And I just thought about my family and all my supporters. And actually it didn't feel like a personal achievement because I knew I had all these people following me.
Yeah.
I really felt like it was an amazing thing for them to experience that actually with me. So it was just such an amazing feeling. We were also up there in the dark, so it was very early, right? 6:15 a.m. So I also knew that was really good from a safety point of view. We had a lot of time to get safely back down off that mountain. Yeah. That's the most important thing on any Everest climb.
Awesome. So what's next on the adventure side? So what new goals have you set for yourself?
To be honest, since climbing Everest, I've been just so busy because I set up Inspire Alpine, right? So that's a social enterprise. So we run mountain trips in the UK, we run overseas trips to Kilimanjaro and Everest Base Camp, and then we reinvest the majority of profits into supporting the most disadvantaged young people. So I will go and I give free talks to schools in the most deprived areas to raise aspirations, and also we're designing like an outdoor residential program for those young people as well to build confidence and resilience. So all of that has taken up so much time over the last 3 years. So I've not done much for my own personal project. Hopefully in maybe 2 years time, I'll have a window of opportunity. Obviously trying to climb the 3 highest peaks in every continent. That means for Asia, we're looking at Everest, K2 and Kanchenjunga. They're all 8,000 meter peaks. So at some point I need to decide, am I going to try and climb K2 and Kanchenjunga? Because my project will not succeed if I don't do that.
Yeah. Awesome. So let's shift back again to discovering your purpose. So your time with the Red Cross helped you kind of uncover what it is you're here to do. So what's been the evolution from Red Cross to, living that purpose of yours?
I felt like there was that element missing in my life. And my mum was a nurse, so she worked and cared for people for 40 years. And she used to do night shifts, working in hospitals, and then laterally in sort of old folks' homes, care
Yep.
homes. So I guess I just admired that. And my aunt was a nurse as well. So I felt like that service was something that was important, but was missing in my life. So I took the opportunity, actually, when I was working for the corporate bank in Edinburgh. They had a secondment program. They were supporting one of their key customers who had set up a foundation which ran an orphanage and a school in Kenya.
Yep.
So I applied for a secondment to that orphanage. And that was where I realized for the first time, actually, this is really what I want to do with my life. I want to use my professional skills to support young people like this. That's when I started applying for jobs in the charity sector. So, and that completely changed my life, because before that, like everyone else, I'm worrying about, how much money can I earn? What nice apartment or nice house do I want to buy, or what car? Those things are meaningless to me now. Like, they're not valuable for me anymore. I don't care about possessions. I just care about actually having a positive impact on young people, the next generation, and people who are less well off than I am. And that was a total game changer for me to realize that and understand that.
Okay. So how important do you think it is for someone to discover their purpose and follow their dreams?
I can only say from my own experience, it changed my life. So I appreciate there are going to be people out there who just are unable to do that because of some kind of circumstance. Maybe it's an economic problem they have, or a family problem. But I found a way to do it. I think it's a mindset more than anything, really. And I think that having discovered my purpose, I then feel like a responsibility to share my story with other young people and try and inspire them to follow their dreams as well, because it's just so fulfilling. And there's things I haven't done, like I'm 44. I don't have my own family. I sacrificed that because I thought, actually, it's so important to me to follow my dreams. And then I've moved back to the UK now, so maybe that's something I can focus on later. But yeah, it's just been really, really fulfilling for me, and I'm hoping that other people can find a way to unlock their potential as well.
So do you have any pointers on how you can possibly discover your purpose? I mean, yours seems to have kind of evolved because you put yourself out there to have these kind of experiences, and then that kind of defined for you what you should be doing. Do you have any suggestions for other people?
I would say it's very, very easy to talk yourself out of something like this and say, actually, if I do decide to follow my passion, it means I can't do X, Y, or Z, or I've got a mortgage to pay or something else. But what I found is you take the decision and then you just deal with the consequences of that. And okay, so it might mean that your house might not be as big as it was before, or you might have to sell your car. When I was looking to fund an Everest expedition, it was £50,000 minimum.
Yep.
To go to Everest. I wasn't in a position at that point to have that money in my bank. So I relied on support from my network in terms of corporate sponsorship. I moved out of my apartment in Cambridge into digs with a family, for 12 months. Not something that someone who's in their kind of late 30s or early 40s would think about doing. But I was willing to do that because it was so important for me to try. And I would have sold my car if I had to. So I think just don't talk yourself out of these things. If you're passionate about something and it's important to you, you can deal with the consequences. Your life will change. In some ways, your life won't be what you expected, but in many other ways, it'll just be so much more meaningful. So yeah, just be brave.
Yep. And then how do you develop the perseverance and resilience? Because obviously you're going to face challenges and obstacles, like you've experienced that with your adventure side, and then obviously in the things you've been doing now as far as the more social enterprise kind of side, you face challenges and obstacles, things that demotivate you. So how do you work your way through those?
Well, I know for me personally, my two the biggest experiences I've ever had, which would be the Marathon des Sables and climbing Everest, have actually taken place after some really dark moments, right? When I felt like all hope was gone, really. So, I lost my job as a trainee chartered accountant, and I thought, well, there's no future. And then 6 months later, I find myself, crossing the Sahara and finishing the Marathon des Sables. And when I went back to Everest in 2018, I had a really difficult work situation to deal with that had a massive impact on me. And then several months later, I found myself back on Everest and I was able to reach the top. So I've just found that when you have those really dark moments, there's a huge amount of opportunity there, actually, and a huge amount of hope. And I think having had those moments in my life before, it just helps me to reflect on them. If I am facing difficulties in my personal life, or if on one of my adventures, I've always been in a darker place, so I know that there's light at the end of a tunnel, and if I just keep pushing through, eventually I'll get into that light. So that's helped me. Yeah, but it's all about experience. You've got to have those experiences,
Yeah.
understand what it's like to suffer and fail, and maybe enjoy the suffering as well to some degree.
So you focus on your past experiences to realize that you can work your way through this and then look at there's always going to be a light at the end. And then, this is just part of the process. Is that how you kind of do it?
Yeah, definitely. And then when I'm doing like an adventure and there's a physical element to it, plus a kind of mental element, I just try to, I don't think about the end goal. I think about what's coming in the next 5 minutes. What's my
Yeah.
next section looking like? I'll take 100 steps and I'll see how I'm doing. Oh, I'm feeling okay. I can take another 100 steps. So just breaking these things down into the smallest possible component, and then that suddenly becomes manageable. You manage that, then you manage the next one and the next one. And so I think I probably do that as well. I also distract myself. So when I was up on the high camp on Everest, 8,300 meters, I'd never been this high before, way outside my comfort zone. And it was terrifying because genuinely I'm scared of heights, and I knew what was coming ahead of me on the summit ridge. So I was just distracting myself by saying, okay, we're leaving at 10 p.m. So at 7 p.m., I need to start getting my kit ready. I'd put my boots on. I need to get my harness ready. I need to get my mitts ready. I need to prepare some water. Just distracting myself by going through those to-do lists. So I find that helpful. Distraction and breaking things down to small components.
Okay. So that's interesting. You're saying that you're scared of heights. So you basically just manage that by taking one step at a time and distracting yourself by going through a process.
Yeah, and also when you're actually on a mountain or a climb, focusing, only on where am I placing my foot or my hand for the next move, right? So that means don't think about what's below you or ahead of you. Just take it step by step, and that focus really helps to kind of calm all the anxiety,
Yeah.
because you can't be anxious and focused at the same time. It's almost impossible. So just try and stay focused on what you're doing, each step that you're taking, and that just helps to reduce anxiety for me.
Okay. So what about mindset? So I've read some of the commentary about yourself, and you're very big on growth mindset and cultivating this. So what's the process here?
I think I realized after the Marathon des Sables that like opportunities are there, and first of all you have to create opportunities for yourself, and then you have to take the opportunities that are there. And that was the difference for me. I think I used to expect things to be handed to me in a plate, and that's not how life works. You've got to go seeking opportunity and creating opportunity by working hard. And so when I started to realize that, my life totally changed. And I developed like a small mantra for myself.
Yeah.
And some people might think it's a little bit cheesy, but it was like, believe in yourself. That's super important, because I didn't used to. Ignore your doubters. I don't waste time on anyone who has a negative view of what I'm doing. They're not important to me anymore. I
Yeah.
only focus on the people that support what I'm doing, and then make it happen. And that's all about creating and taking opportunity, because no one else is going to do it for you. If you really want something, go out and make it happen yourself.
Yep. No, very true. It's about individual responsibility, isn't it? Like assuming responsibility for your life, not expecting anything to come from the outside.
Definitely,
So,
yeah.
no,
Yeah.
brilliant. So you're a big goal setter. So what's your process around that?
Well, I set myself this goal of completing the Marathon des Sables, and I realized that that was a template I could follow. And then I just set myself bigger and bigger goals. Like, I decided to climb the three highest peaks on every continent.
Yeah.
And I didn't have much experience of climbing big mountains. So from one point of view, it seemed ridiculous. But the important thing was that I said, that is my goal. And I wrote it down and I said, okay, how do I get from where I am with almost no experience to that point? And then I was able to plan a series of increasingly more ambitious expeditions. And those were building on the experiences that I had on a previous expedition. So I'd learned so much from each trip, whether I succeeded or failed, I could feed into that process.
Yeah.
So I think it's just having the courage to say, actually, that is my goal. And it might seem ridiculous to some people, but it's a goal that I think I can achieve. I'm not sure how yet, but I'm going to set it for myself and then work out how to get there kind of sequentially. And that's how I approach things, and then taking those opportunities as they come. So through my career, I've had quite a diverse career.
Yep.
Where increasing levels of responsibility. And if I'd thought back 5 years to who I was, or 10 years, I would never have seen myself in some of the roles that I've had. It would seem ridiculous to me, but I did it. So just keep setting those goals for yourself, make them ambitious, and then, learn from each experience and feed that into your planning process.
Yeah. No, I like how you break down your goals into something that's achievable, but still have that very big out there goal and then kind of like work towards it. So I think a lot of people get overwhelmed by the big goal, but don't break it down. They just kind of like focus too much on the big goal and not, here's like intermediate goals to kind of like get me to that big goal.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's really important to do that. Yeah.
Cool. So you're obviously someone who likes to get out of their comfort zone. So how important do you think it is for people to get out of their comfort zone?
I've, my personal experience again, I've pushed myself way outside my comfort zone. It's, sort of conceptually, you want to move into the place of stress, right? So that's outside your comfort zone. You feel stress, which is a natural reaction, but you don't feel distress. So you don't push yourself too far.
Yeah.
Because if you do push yourself too far into distress, then you're liable just to kind of come back into your shell. But if you can just sit there in the kind of stress zone and have experiences that don't feel comfortable for you, but are still safe, you learn so much. And then your comfort zone will just grow and grow and grow as you slowly push yourself beyond that boundary. So, I learned about comfort zones theoretically when I was working at the bank, but it didn't really mean anything to me because I'd never pushed myself out. So I do that all the time. Like when I was at university, I wouldn't do a presentation. I hated being the center of attention. So the worst thing I could imagine. But now I speak professionally. That's part of my job because I'm passionate about what I speak about and it's meaningful for me. So yeah, I've just found it's changed my life, just getting outside my own comfort zone and just slowly expanding it. Yeah, totally changed.
And so what's your view on potential? So what are you trying to achieve, like personally from a growth perspective? So what is it, or where are you hoping to get?
I'm just interested in understanding what my full potential is because I've unlocked some potential in some areas, in the kind of endurance field, I guess, and I guess in some areas in the mountaineering field, but not in my sort of social business field. So I feel like there's still a huge amount for me to learn. I started this social enterprise without really understanding what a social enterprise was, or how to raise funds or how to apply for grants. And it's been really a learning journey. I've had to be really humble because I started with nothing. But I think that this social enterprise has great potential and I just have to understand and find a way to unlock that potential and help it grow and therefore achieve our social mission and help as many disadvantaged young people as possible. So that's kind of my focus for the next couple of years, is just unlocking that potential.
Yep. No, brilliant. So what's your definition of success?
Never giving up. That's simple as that. Yeah. I don't see it as achieving a goal or a specific task. It's just the ability to just keep pushing through the difficulties, and just never give up and keep chasing those dreams and following those dreams. because if you do achieve all your goals, then what's left, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so you never can kind of like stop going. So you always have an ongoing kind of like list of goals.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe when I'm like 80 or something, I'll be like, no, that's it. I'm done now. That's enough. But life is just much more interesting when you're pushing yourself and discovering and growing as a person. Yeah.
Yep. So what would you say to any 40-year-olds out there, like you're 44 now, who kind of like viewing life a little bit negatively or with anxiety, or maybe even going like, or unfulfilled with life and saying, I'm too old to be able to achieve what I'm actually, I would like to achieve with my life. What would you say to them?
I would say you're never too old because you can discover new passions or new experiences at any age. Just thinking about my own mum. She decided she wanted to climb Snowdon, which is the highest peak in Wales, 2015, I think. So I took her up Snowdon. It took her like 7.5 hours. Her toenails fell off when she came down. But she just loved it. And then the next year, she decided she wants to climb Ben Nevis, which is the highest peak in the UK. And that was like, for her, that was her Everest.
Yeah.
And since then, she's discovered this passion for hill walking, and she's joined a women's walking group, and that's what she loves doing now. And she was 65 when she started that, so it's never too late. I was 30, probably early 30s, before I really started, unlocking those aspects in my mind, all the self doubt, and so I've achieved some success over that period. I've had difficult points, but I've had a really interesting life, and I've had some really amazing experiences, and I think that's the most important thing. And so it's never too late to start. And the first step you take in any journey is the most important, right? That's the hardest part.
Yep.
To say, actually, I'm going to be brave. I'm going to take this step. I don't know where it's going to lead, but I'm willing to take it. And that's really the hardest part. Everything else is easy compared to that commitment.
Yep. No, very good. So what's the legacy you're looking to build or leave, with all you're doing?
I want to just reach as many young people as possible here in the UK and overseas, and just help them have higher aspirations, right? Believe that they can achieve and follow their own dreams, regardless of their economic background or their circumstances or their family circumstances. Just to have that real ambition, and also develop some confidence and resilience to say, yeah, there will be difficulties, but you can bounce back from them. So, I've spoken at like 200 schools now, maybe more across the UK. So we've reached about 30,000 young people so far, but I want to be doing 100 talks a year to, I don't know, like 20,000 people every year, young people. And I want to be getting some of those young people outside into the fresh air, into the brilliant scenery we've got here, and developing the resilience. So hopefully that generation of people will then be able to pass that on to the next. So yeah, it's just about encouraging young people to achieve their potential and then hopefully pass that on.
Okay. So what's the future vision of the world you'd like to see?
I mean, I think, there's a lot that sort of, we have more in common than we have that separates us. Religion might separate us, geographical barriers might separate us, but I've worked in, several countries around the world, and ultimately people are all the same. They've got the same motivations, they've got the same sense of humor. And so I would just hope that in the future, there can be less conflict between countries or different populations, and that we can sort of come together to address and tackle some of the big challenges that we face, like, for example, climate change. And I think, just allowing people to really achieve their potential as human beings as well is really important, not just individually, but kind of collectively.
Yep. So, well, I think this is a good lead in talking a little bit more about Inspire Alpine, because to create that kind of a world, we really need a lot more people engaged in the process, don't we? So, and I think we don't really include enough people in the process, because we kind of like limited. Society's kind of created these barriers where we have all these resources and we don't really include them. We don't instill them with the belief that they can have a positive impact. So I think a lot of the work you're currently doing kind of like will help address some of that younger generation. So maybe let's talk a little bit more about that and then how you're looking to achieve it.
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is if I can speak to a school and there's 200 or 1,000 people in the audience, if one individual there has a light bulb moment and says, actually, there is something I can do to change my life or improve my life or help fulfill my potential, then I've done something and I've changed the world in a small, tiny way.
Yep.
Then that person can then perhaps spread and share that with someone else. And so just having, those little moments of inspiring individuals to make a positive change themselves and contribute to their community, whether that's volunteering at a food bank or a sports club or doing something else which helps other people. So I hope that I'm just lighting some tiny fires somewhere in those young people's minds. Yeah.
Okay. And then how are you going about it? So you're doing the talks, and then you're raising money by doing expeditions. So tell us a little bit more about that kind of work.
Yeah, so we are like a social enterprise. So we exist to help close the attainment gap. That's written in our articles of association. So that's why we exist, okay? We reinvest the majority of our profits to help either provide those free talks to schools in the most disadvantaged areas or for the outdoor residential program. So that's really why we exist as a company. We get three main income streams. The first one is I do inspirational talks to businesses and to like private schools. We reinvest the profits. The second income stream is UK mountain events. So I lead, and with a small group of other leaders, we lead groups of fundraisers around some of the highest peaks in the UK on either individual ascents or on challenge events, or some scrambles. And then the third one is our overseas treks and expeditions. So we want to put together an ambitious portfolio of 10 or 12 different destinations, but we've run trips to Kilimanjaro and to Everest Base Camp. But then we were hit by the pandemic. So
Yep.
that had a massive impact on us. Of course, all of our income streams dried up overnight. So we've moved our stuff online. I've been doing webinars instead of talks at schools and businesses. And we developed some virtual events. So a virtual trek to Everest Base Camp. And we've been able to sell that to some of our corporate clients as well, just to help us survive the pandemic. But we want to be growing each of those income streams and, generating more profit and reinvesting the majority of that into our social program. And hopefully that's what we can do over the next sort of 3 to 5 years.
Okay. So underlying everything you do, there's this element of adventure. So clearly adventure is a good thing for yourself. It's always been a good thing. So what do you say to other people about the need to include more adventure in their life?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, like what it's really helped me with is to manage anxiety. Like having those clear goals and every year knowing that I've got 1 or 2 expeditions coming on the horizon, like in 6 or 12 months, it helps me stay really focused and I don't get distracted by the stuff that I used to get distracted by. And I don't sabotage myself to the same degree that I used to by going out drinking or whatever. So it's just given me that structure, and that clarity of purpose and focus really. And then once I'm out in the hills, I just feel like it's a really amazing place to have kind of like blue sky thinking. Like I can climb a mountain. It might take me 5 hours, but I've got time to think.
Yeah.
And often we are just so busy, because our lives are massively busy and we're in this digital world that we just don't have time to think. So for me, for example, setting goals for Inspire Alpine, I do that when I'm in the mountains because that's when I've got the headspace to do it. And I love pushing myself hard and suffering to some extent physically in the mountains and moving fast. I find it really exciting. Yeah, gives me a buzz.
Well, that's important, isn't it? Life's
Yeah.
all about feeling excited about life. So this is a good point to kind of change direction a little bit. What's your definition of living your best life, or what I call a legendary life?
Yeah, for me personally, I've sacrificed some areas of life, and I've said, look, this is what I'm going to focus on, um, and that's been incredible. But I do believe that balance is important. So I guess I'm reimagining what my goals are going to be for the next 5 to 10 years. Um, but I will still be looking at trying to fulfill my potential in different ways, trying to grow as a person, and then at some point become a parent and be, do a good job as a parent and pass that on to, the next generation of hopefully my family at some point. But yeah, just not being distracted, just being very clear and focused about what those goals are and how you want to live your life, and how you want to be a role model for other people, and just holding yourself accountable to that, I think.
Okay. And do you have a life motto, something you live by?
Well, I had this motto. It was probably from 2002 when I was thinking about getting into this kind of adventure space and really starting to push myself. And it was like, believe in yourself, ignore your doubters, and make it happen.
Okay.
So, I don't repeat it to myself over and over now, but the principles are the same. You have to have self-belief. If you don't believe in yourself, no one else will, right? You need to just ignore the negative people in your life and focus on the people that bring you joy and happiness or positivity. And you need to go out there and make the changes and grab the opportunities and make the opportunities for yourself. Yeah.
Okay. So this is almost kind of like answered my last question, which typically is, what are the 3 life lessons you've learned in life that you would like to share with others? So do you have any ones additional to the ones you kind of mentioned before?
Well, the strap line, the motto for Inspire Alpine is follow your dreams, right?
Yeah.
And that's when I'm giving a keynote talk to a school or a business audience. That's kind of the end point of my talk. I talk about how I followed my dreams, and I try and encourage other people to do the same, regardless of what those dreams are. So following your dreams for me is like super important. And if you can do that, then everything else will fall into place. Yeah.
Yep. So very good. Well, Ricky, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. I'm sure a lot of people will be inspired and gain some value from this. So if anyone's interested in learning a little bit more about yourself and then also Inspire Alpine, how can they find you online?
Yeah, so our website is inspire-alpine.com. We're also on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook at Inspire Alpine, all one word. And I'll be at Ricky Munday on Instagram and Twitter as well. So yeah, we'd love you to visit our site, and we'd love you to come and join one of our trips. Actually, we do some fantastic trips, and it'd be great for you to join us and help us achieve our social mission too.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Ricky. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you.